My doctor said I had chlamydia. Trevor tested negative. Then he looked across our kitchen and asked, "So who have you been sleeping with behind my back?" I stood there holding the pharmacy bag containing my prescription, trying to understand how the conversation had turned against me so quickly. "What did you just ask me?" Trevor folded his arms. "You heard me." Until that moment, I hadn't suspected him of anything. We had been together for a little over a year. I had been screened before we started dating, and my results were negative. Trevor had never been tested, but he told me he had no reason to worry. We agreed to be exclusive. A week before the argument, I started feeling a dull pressure low in my pelvis. It wasn't severe, but it stayed long enough to concern me. I thought it might be a bladder infection, so I made an appointment at my regular clinic. My doctor ordered several tests, including screening for chlamydia and gonorrhea. "We'll call when everything is ready," she said. Because the clinic processed those tests in-house, my phone rang the following afternoon. I was standing beside my car in a grocery store parking lot when the nurse asked me to confirm my name and date of birth. Then her tone softened. "Your test came back positive for chlamydia." I leaned against the car. "Are you certain?" "Yes. Your doctor has already sent medication to your pharmacy." I didn't cry. I was too confused to feel much of anything. My first thought was that Trevor needed to be tested and treated. I didn't know how the infection had appeared, but I wasn't prepared to accuse him before we understood what had happened. I called him immediately. "My doctor just contacted me," I said. "I tested positive for chlamydia." There was a long pause. "What?" "You need to get tested." "Are you serious?" "Yes." He asked whether the clinic might have made a mistake. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe one of us had it before we met. Some people don't have symptoms." "But you were tested before me." "I know. You weren't." He went quiet. "I'm not blaming you," I said. "I just need you to make an appointment." Trevor went to an urgent care clinic the following morning. It was Saturday, and my regular clinic was closed. He texted me from the waiting room and said they had collected urine and blood samples. When he returned, he seemed tense, but I assumed he was frightened and embarrassed. We sat together on the couch that evening. "Whatever happens, we'll figure it out," he said. The next afternoon, he called me from his car. They contacted me with the results. That was fast. "Everything is negative." I sat up. "Everything. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, all of it." They said my blood work was clear too. Something about the explanation sounded incomplete. "Can you send me a copy?" They called me. "Nothing is online yet." "Did they specifically say the chlamydia test was negative?" "Yes." "Are you sure?" His voice changed. "Why wouldn't I be?" "I'm only asking because you were tested yesterday." They called me Savannah. "I'm not accusing you. I'm trying to understand." He paused before saying, "Then where did yours come from?" My stomach tightened. "I don't know. If I'm negative and you're positive, there aren't many explanations. We need to speak to a doctor." "Were you with someone else?" "No." Think carefully before you answer. That sentence hurt more than the question. It sounded as though he expected me to choose between confessing and inventing a better lie. "I have never cheated on you." "Then explain the result." "I can't explain something I don't understand." He questioned me about nights I had spent at Kelsey's apartment. He brought up an old boyfriend I hadn't spoken to in years. He even asked whether anything had happened while he was away on a trip with his friends. Every answer seemed to frustrate him more. Finally, I stopped defending myself. "I'm not going to keep proving that something never happened. If you were me, you'd be suspicious too." "No. I would speak to a doctor before deciding you betrayed me." He grabbed his keys and left. That night, I replayed the last year in my head. I remembered late arrivals and moments when he turned his phone face down. None of them had seemed important before. Now I wondered whether I had ignored something obvious. The following morning, I called the urgent care clinic. I knew they couldn't discuss Trevor's private records, so I asked only about their general testing process. If someone was tested for chlamydia on Saturday, how long would the result normally take? I asked. The nurse explained that their samples were sent to an outside laboratory. Usually 2 to 5 business days. Could one come back sooner? It's possible. That's just the normal estimate. I thanked her and ended the call. The timing didn't prove Trevor had lied. A laboratory could process a sample faster than expected. Still, his description of the call bothered me. Maybe one part of his testing had come back negative, and he had assumed the rest was finished. Because we shared a phone account, I checked the recent calls. The clinic had contacted him. That much was true. I wanted the explanation to be a misunderstanding. It was easier to believe he had heard the wrong result than to believe he had manufactured the entire story. When Trevor came home, I told him what the nurse had said. "You called my clinic?" I asked about their usual turnaround time. I didn't ask about your records. You had no right. I didn't pretend to be you. That isn't the point. They said the chlamydia result usually takes several business days. They told me I was negative. Then call them again. His expression hardened. You don't believe me. I believe they called. I'm not sure every test was finished. Trevor took out his phone. Fine. He placed the call on speaker. After several automated prompts, someone at reception answered. I was tested this weekend, he said. I need someone to explain my results. The receptionist asked for his information. Then she said, a nurse or provider will need to return your call. I already spoke to someone yesterday. I can't interpret clinical results from the front desk. Can you tell me whether everything is complete? I'm sorry. The clinical team will have to discuss that with you. Trevor ended the call. See? They won't tell me anything. That doesn't confirm what you heard yesterday. It doesn't mean I'm lying. I never said you were. You didn't have to. He left before I could respond. About an hour later, he texted that he was going back to the clinic to request another test. When he returned, his mood had completely changed. He walked through the door smiling and kissed my forehead as though the argument had never happened. I'm done fighting with you, he said. I stepped away. What happened at the clinic? My insurance won't cover the same test again this soon. Did you speak to anyone? They checked my file. Everything is negative. Did they give you paperwork? No. Why not? He sighed. Because I'm trying to move past this. Yesterday, you accused me of cheating. I was scared. I shouldn't have done that. And now you suddenly believe me? Yes. What changed? Nothing. I calmed down. He reached for my hand. Take your medication. We'll wait for your follow-up test, and then this will be over. The reassurance should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like he was trying to close the subject before I asked the right question. That evening, Trevor made dinner and cleaned the kitchen without being asked. He sat close to me on the couch, acting more affectionate than he had in weeks. For nearly 2 months, he had avoided intimacy whenever he could. First, he said he was sick. Then he claimed he was tired or stressed. On the few occasions we had been intimate, he insisted on using protection, saying he was worried my pelvic pain might be caused by an infection. At the time, I thought he was being cautious. Now the sudden affection felt less like comfort and more like distraction. The following morning, I called my doctor. I explained my result, Trevor's negative test, and the confusing timeline. She told me that test results could be affected by several factors, including when the sample was collected and whether someone had recently taken an effective antibiotic. Has he taken any antibiotics? She asked. Not that I know of. If he completed treatment before his test, a negative result now wouldn't necessarily tell us whether he had an infection earlier. She also clarified that routine chlamydia screening was generally performed using a urine sample or swab, not by searching for antibodies in a standard blood test. Trevor's explanation from the first phone call sounded even less reliable. My doctor instructed me to finish my medication, follow the recommended precautions, and return for follow-up care. She said Trevor needed to give his own provider a complete and honest medical history. When I told him, he agreed to call the clinic again in front of me. We waited together at the kitchen table until a nurse returned his message. Trevor placed the phone on speaker. I need you to read all my completed results, he said, including the chlamydia test. There was a brief pause while she checked his chart. All the results currently listed are negative, including chlamydia and gonorrhea. Trevor thanked her and ended the call. Now do you believe me? I believe the test was negative. That means I didn't give you anything. It means you were negative when the sample was collected. You're still trying to blame me. I'm trying to understand how I tested negative before our relationship, stayed faithful, and tested positive a year later. Your old test could have been wrong. It's possible. Then stop treating me like I cheated. I didn't accuse you until after you accused me. He pushed his chair back. What do you want me to do? Get tested again through my clinic and tell the doctor about any medication you've taken. I haven't taken anything. Then there shouldn't be a problem. He stared at me before agreeing to go the next morning. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I had the uneasy sense that he was agreeing because he believed another test would prove nothing. The next day, Trevor asked me to get his insurance card from the glove compartment while he finished dressing. I went outside and opened the passenger door. The compartment was crowded with registration papers, old napkins, and receipts. I found the card beneath a folded pharmacy bag. I nearly ignored it. Then I noticed Trevor's name and the date printed on the attached receipt. 7 weeks earlier. The medication listed was doxycycline. I remembered that week. Trevor had told me he had a severe sinus infection. He claimed an online provider had prescribed medication after a video appointment. For several days afterward, he had avoided kissing me and slept facing the other direction, saying he didn't want me to get sick. When the medication was finished, he continued avoiding intimacy. Whenever I questioned him, he blamed exhaustion. I carried the receipt inside. Trevor was standing near the bathroom mirror when I held it out. What was this medication for? He glanced at it. My sinus infection. You told me you hadn't taken antibiotics. I forgot. You forgot taking 14 tablets? It was weeks ago. Did you tell the urgent care clinic? I don't remember. My doctor specifically asked about antibiotics. That prescription has nothing to do with this. Then show me the record from the online appointment. He turned away. We're going to be late. We aren't going anywhere until you show me. I deleted the email. Log into the patient portal. I don't remember the website. Trevor had demanded dates and evidence when he believed I was guilty. Now that I had found something he hadn't prepared for, he couldn't remember a single detail. What happened 7 weeks ago? I asked. Nothing. Why were you prescribed doxycycline? I already told you. Then prove it. He sat on the edge of the bed and covered his face with both hands. For several seconds, the only sound in the room was the bathroom fan. Finally, he spoke. I had symptoms. What kind? He stared at the floor. Pain. Irritation. Why did you tell me it was your sinuses? I was embarrassed. Did you get tested? No. Why not? The online provider said it could be an infection. They prescribed the medication and told me to get tested if it didn't improve. When did the symptoms start? He didn't answer. When, Trevor? A few days after the cabin trip. 2 months earlier, he had spent 3 nights away with friends. He called me each evening. He sent photographs of the lake, their food, and the fire pit outside the cabin. He told me he missed me. Did something happen during that trip? He kept looking at the floor. Answer me. It happened once. The room seemed to narrow around us. For days, I had searched for a complicated medical explanation. There wasn't one. Trevor had cheated during the trip. Soon afterward, he developed symptoms and secretly obtained antibiotics. He avoided intimacy while taking them, then used protection afterward because he knew there was a chance I had been exposed. By the time I received my diagnosis, his treatment had been completed for weeks. His negative test didn't clear him. It only showed that the infection wasn't detected when he was tested. Who is she? I asked. You don't know her. That wasn't my question. She was staying at another cabin. Did your friends know? A couple of them. Did you use protection? He looked away. I sat down because my legs no longer felt steady. You knew you might have exposed me. I didn't know what I had. You knew enough to get treatment and avoid touching me. I hoped you hadn't caught anything. You hoped? I was scared. So you waited to see whether I became sick. His eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. You accused me of cheating. I panicked when your result came back. You knew where it could have come from. I didn't know for certain. You knew enough to lie about the medication. He reached toward me, but I moved away. I thought you would leave, he said. So you tried to make me believe I had betrayed you. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told the truth. He said he had been drinking during the trip and barely remembered the woman. He insisted it lasted only a few minutes and meant nothing. None of it changed what he had done afterward. The cheating had happened once. The deception continued every day. He remained silent. Pack a bag, I said. His head lifted. Savannah, please. I want you to leave. We can work through this. I don't want to. You're upset. Give yourself time. I've had 3 days to think about why my test was positive. You used that time to accuse me and protect yourself. I made a mistake. You made several choices, and every one of them left me carrying the consequences. He began crying harder. I love you. You let me question my own memory while you knew the truth. I was terrified of losing you. You should have considered that before the trip. He asked whether he could sleep on the couch. I told him no. He reminded me that he lived there too. I reminded him that the lease was in my name and he had friends nearby. Then he said I was being emotional. That ended the discussion. Get out. He packed slowly, hoping the delay would change my mind. He checked the same drawers twice and wandered into the kitchen for things he never took. When he finally reached the door with his bag, he turned back. Can I call you tomorrow? No. What am I supposed to tell everyone? The truth. His expression hardened before he walked out. I locked the door behind him. I expected to fall apart once I was alone. Instead, I returned to the kitchen and placed his pharmacy receipt beside my prescription bag. The paper didn't prove exactly what infection he had before taking the medication. His confession made that distinction irrelevant. Trevor called repeatedly that night. At first, he apologized. Later, he said I was throwing away a good relationship over one incident. By morning, he had convinced himself that I had invaded his privacy by finding the receipt, even though he had sent me to retrieve his insurance card. He also claimed there was no way to prove he had passed the infection to me. Maybe that was true in the strictest medical sense. I didn't need absolute proof to end the relationship. I knew I had been faithful. I knew he had cheated, developed symptoms, and hidden the treatment. I also knew that when my diagnosis threatened to expose him, his first response was to make me look guilty. Kelsey came over that afternoon and helped me place Trevor's remaining belongings into boxes. She didn't offer advice or tell me everything happened for a reason. She simply stayed. Trevor began telling mutual friends that our breakup involved confusing medical results and that I had become paranoid. I ignored it until one of them messaged me. Trevor said his tests were negative and yours weren't. Did something happen with someone else? I photographed the pharmacy receipt and sent the picture to Trevor. If one more person asks whether I cheated, I will tell them what you confessed and why you were already taking antibiotics. His response arrived almost immediately. You're trying to ruin my life. I stared at the message, thinking about how easily he had tried to ruin my name. Then I blocked him. He collected his boxes from outside the apartment the following morning. Kelsey stayed with me while he loaded them into his car. He knocked twice even though I had told him not to. I didn't open the door. When he finally drove away, there was no sense of victory. I still had medication to finish and follow-up care ahead of me. I still woke up remembering the way he had looked at me across the kitchen, as though my positive result automatically made me unfaithful. The cheating ended our relationship. What stayed with me was how quickly he had turned his fear into an accusation and expected me to carry his shame for him. For several weeks, I kept the pharmacy receipt in the kitchen drawer. Sometimes I missed the version of Trevor I thought I knew. On those nights, I looked at the date printed beneath his name and remembered that he had known about the risk long before I did. Then I closed the drawer.